Welcome back to Milan Recording Studios. My name is James Pavel Shakras. In today's video, I'm going to be doing an in-depth comparison between two rather iconic instruments. The Musser M500 Marimba, which is a concert grand size of 5 octaves, and the Musser M75 Vibraphone, which is 3 octaves. So basically, the reason I'm doing this video is because there are a lot of similarities between the marimba and the vibraphone, but at the same time, there are also a large amount of differences between the two. So even though they do look similar, they actually have a different sound and they have a much different role in music. So today I figured I would talk to you guys and show you guys why these two instruments are actually completely different, even though they do look rather similar. Now, first off, let's start off with the two similarities between the marimba and the vibraphone. First of all, they both produce their sound with bars. The entire bar, when you strike it, resonates, which means that these instruments are in the idiophone family. An idiophone is an instrument where the entire body of the instrument resonates when it's creating music. And in this case, even though the frame of the instrument, which is still the instrument, it doesn't necessarily resonate, the entire bar when you hit a bar, the entire bar is resonating. And so that means that since this is the entire thing that's resonating, it makes it an idiophone. The vibraphone is the same way. So that is one similarity that these two have. They both produce their sound from bars, and they both belong to the same musical family. These bars are strung on ropes and sometimes on cables. It depends on the different design, and it depends on how they're made. This one is kind of like on paracord, and this one here is like several layers of twine that are wound together. Basically, these bars are suspended over resonating tubes that help to amplify the sound of the bars. Both of these instruments you will see have resonating tubes. These ones are designed like J's at the end to make them longer so that they're in pitch with the bar. And on the vibraphone, you'll see that on the other side of it, which I guess is considered the front or the back, I'm not really sure. But on the other side, they're closer to you, you'll see that they're kind of shaped like an arch. That's actually completely aesthetic, and it's there simply to look really cool. On the inside, there is a cap on the end of all of the resonator tubes, and that is actually determining the pitch of the tube. The tube is in the same pitch as the bar, which helps the sound resonate and come booming back out of the top and making the sound a whole lot louder. Those are the two similarities between the vibraphone and the marimba, and other than that, they are completely separate instruments. One thing that makes them completely different is that on the marimba, the bars are made of wood, specifically, generally, in this case, Honduran rosewood, and in the case of the Musser M75, the bars are made of metal. This produces a much different sound, a completely different timbre, and an entirely different amount of sustain, and therefore a completely different role in music. You wouldn't want to play a marimba for a vibraphone part, although in some cases you probably could, and you wouldn't want to play a vibraphone in place of a marimba, although, again, in some cases you could. But my main point here is that the marimba has a much different sound to the vibraphone, and I'll get to that in another bit. Another feature about the vibraphone that I will demonstrate in a bit is that it is actually an electric instrument. It has a cable that gets plugged into the wall right down here. There's an outlet, and that's where the vibraphone is plugged into, and it actually has some special features that I will talk about later. The vibraphone also has a sustain pedal because those metal bars give it a massive amount of sustain that the marimba simply doesn't have. The marimba doesn't have as much sustain as the vibraphone, so it doesn't need a damper pedal. The vibraphone, however, if it didn't have a damper pedal, you couldn't play it. So now let me just kind of talk to you guys about the sound of both of these instruments and why they're super cool, and also I will show you guys the differences between the two. So since I'm here at the marimba, let me start off with this and show you just this instrument is easily one of my favorites. One of the things that I love about it, and another thing that separates the marimba from the vibraphone, especially in this particular case, is the range of marimba. This is a 5-octave marimba, and that is a 3-octave almost called a xylophone. It is not a xylophone, it's a vibraphone. So it's a 3-octave vibraphone versus a 5-octave marimba, and so of course you have an extended range. The lowest note on the vibraphone is actually, I believe, this F. That's the lowest note on the vibraphone, and as you can see, the marimba goes down an entire octave and a little bit more than that below. So the bass end of this is absolutely my favorite region of the instrument. I do love the mid-range up here, it's really pretty too, but the bass end just sounds really deep and ominous. Sounds super, super cool, and I love the sound of the bass. That is something that the Vibraphone simply can't do, and I've never heard of a bass Vibraphone. Did I call it a xylophone a second ago? If I did, I meant a Vibraphone. Is there such a thing as a bass Vibraphone? Because I've never heard of that. Maybe it's something that simply isn't possible with metal bars. They just don't sound good going below this low F. But if it's possible to have a Vibraphone that has like a low, deep, pure, rumbly sound in the bass, that would be super, super cool, but perhaps it's just not possible, and that's why those instruments don't exist. Bass marimbas do actually exist. I don't know if they go below this low C or not, but I have seen pictures online of really tall marimbas that maybe do go below this low C, and I've also seen pictures of marimbas that only contain like the lowest octave and a half that would be the same range of this. So you have an instrument dedicated purely to the bass. Because the bass end on this thing sounds amazing, and I find that the Musser M500 has the best sounding bass of any marimba that I know of in the world. It's deep, it's sonorous, it's booming, it's really, really cool, and it sounds absolutely amazing. Absolutely sweet. And of course, the tenor and the mid-range of it, like this area right in here, is also really, really, really pretty. It sounds super cool. But I can't stop returning to the bass because that also sounds super cool. Let me play a simple little chord progression here and just show you how really awesome this sounds. Even playing something simple like that just really sounds absolutely beautiful on the marimba. The tone of it is absolutely amazing. One interesting thing about both the marimba and the Vibraphone is the places in which you can hit the bars is exactly the same on the two. The place where the rope runs through the bar is known as the nodal point, and that's going to be the spot of the least possible sound, and this is not where you want to be hitting the bar. It's not harmful for the bar or anything, but it doesn't actually sound all that great. For example, if I hit this bar here, right on the nodal point, you hear it doesn't really sound like much at all, but if I just move my mallet in towards the center, which is the best place to hit the bar, you can hear that the sound really sounds awesome. Another place you can hit the bar is actually on the very edge of it as well, which is the second best place to hit the bar. You do lose a little bit of the resonance, but it still sounds perfectly fine. So this is the best place to hit the bar, right in the dead center. The second best place to hit it is on the edges, and the worst place to hit it is on that nodal point. You lose a lot of the sound. And the Vibraphone is the exact same way. So let me play one more little thing on the marimba just as a demo, and then I will play the same two things and also mess around a little bit more on the Vibraphone. But first I'm going to grab those mallets because I'm going to be trying out the treble section of the marimba. And another interesting thing about both these instruments is that there are different hardnesses of mallets you can use. And these will actually change the way the instrument sounds. A heavier, poofy mallet will give the bass end a lot more low fundamental rumble, but those same mallets will do absolutely nothing for the treble end. These are a bit too soft for the treble end. Check this out. If I come over here, there's not really much going on there. It doesn't sound all that cool. But if I grab the harder mallets that I have sitting over here real quick and do that same thing, you'll hear that the instrument sounds a lot different. These red mallets here that I have are actually the hardest mallets that I currently own. There are a wide array of different mallet hardnesses, ranging all the way from probably super cottony soft to mallets that even have little metal balls on the end. Certain types of mallets are not intended to be used with a marimba. The mallets with hard plastic or metal balls are only for use on glockenspiels. Those type of mallets will damage the bars on a marimba. However, these are yarn mallets, and while they are very hard, they aren't going to be hurting the bars. If I play that same little passage here, you can hear that now the marimba has plenty of presence and it's super, super bright and punchy. It's super happy sounding and super awesome. I just absolutely love the sound of the marimba. Now I'm going to move these down a little bit because I'm going to be using that same section of the instrument. And now let me play another little fun melody, and then what I'm going to do is go over to the Vibraphone and play some of the same stuff on it, and you will see how they sound different. Now let's check out the vibraphone and see how that sounds. So here we are at the vibraphone, and the first thing you're able to tell is that it, of course, looks a lot different from the marimba. The marimba has the gorgeous wooden bars, and this has beautiful golden colored bars. Obviously, they're not actual gold, but marimbas do come in, vibraphones do come in two different colors that I have seen. Sometimes I see some that have a silvery color to them, and others will have a gold color. I personally prefer the gold color, so that's why I picked out this particular M75. I think it looks really, really pretty, but regardless of which color you get, the M75 is going to sound absolutely gorgeous. Now, as I mentioned, the lowest note on the vibraphone is this F. You can already tell there's a huge tonal difference between this and the marimba, and if I find that same note on the marimba, it'll be kind of weird because it's upside down for me, but I think F is here. There it is. So that's this same F on the vibraphone and the marimba. So obviously you can hear a huge tonal difference. The marimba has a very short attack and very short sustain, whereas the vibraphone has sustain for days. Just gonna go on and on and on. A note on the vibraphone can easily sustain for probably close to a minute, depending on how hard you hit it. If you hit it a little bit harder, that'll probably ring for a whole minute. And that, of course, is why you need that damper pedal, because if you're gonna be playing something on the vibraphone and you have the pedal down, well, if you play one chord, it's all gonna sound really pretty. But as soon as you start adding in other notes and other chords, it all just completely is useless. You really do need that pedal to be able to clean things up and make stuff sound better. You can also play the vibraphone without using the pedal at all, and that gives a more of a marimba-esque sound, although it is still completely different. So it has a much shorter sustain and has a completely different sound, which is pretty cool. So now let's play a couple of the same little chord progressions I played on the marimba and see how those sound on the vibraphone. This first one I think works way better on the vibraphone than it does on the marimba. It sounds really pretty on the marimba, but sounds even better on the vibes just because of that sustain and the beautiful tone the vibraphone has. Another difference between the vibraphone and the marimba is that they're generally used in two different genres of music. The vibraphone can be found in classical music, but it's most typically known for being used in jazz music. It has that really bright, pure sound that doesn't get lost in the mix and makes an excellent solo instrument. And when you get somebody who's really, really good on the vibes, they can make it sound phenomenal. The marimba, however, is used predominantly in classical music, at least from my experience. You'll see it in orchestras, you'll see it as a solo instrument, but generally the music being played in it will be a bit more classical based than jazz based. I would be kind of interested to see how the marimba works in jazz, and perhaps someday I will try that out. I'm sure I'm not the only one who is curious about that, and I'm sure someone in the past has done so, but I myself would be curious to see how that works in jazz as well, so someday I might mess around with that. I absolutely love the sound of the vibraphone, and one thing that makes it sound even cooler is the pulsator discs. That's why it plugs into the wall. Over here behind where you can see is a switch that powers it on, and then, hang on a minute, the power isn't actually on to that switch. Let me go turn that on. Okay, now we have power. So basically there's a switch down here that you can use to turn on and off the pulsator discs, and then there's also a knob here that you use to control the speed of the pulsator discs. What are pulsator discs? Well, basically inside each resonator tube, except for the ones here where there is no need for one, there is a metal disc that is attached to a spinning rod. What happens is this metal disc will spin along with the rod and basically open and close the resonator tube, and that will change the sound of the bar. Remember how I said earlier that the resonator tube is there to help make the bar sound louder? Well, if you close off that resonator tube with the pulsator disc, lots of fancy terms here, I know. Basically, if you close up the tube thing with the spinny thing, it reduces the amount of volume that will come out. So you will definitely hear a really cool effect. Which is absolutely beautiful, and it has these on every single note. And of course, you can also change the sound. I've heard a lot of people liken the sound of it on the fastest speed to that of a Leslie that you'd find on a Hammond organ. Which it does definitely bear some resemblance to. On some video I did, I forget which one it was, but one of my commenters made a hilarious comment, and they said that basically to make any musical instrument cooler, you put something that spins on it, and I think that's really true because the Leslie has the spinning speakers and cones and it sounds amazing, and the Vibraphone has the spinning pulsator discs and it also sounds really, really great. I typically don't use them on their fastest speed. One thing I do like to do though sometimes is, and one day I'll work this into a song as an effect, is you have them on their fastest speed and then you dial them down to the slow speed. So but it's kind of, it slows down and then just kind of stops. It's kind of a cool effect. But I like to have them somewhere right around here. Which got that nice, subtle kind of pulsating effect that's really, really beautiful, where it swells and then gets quiet and swells and then gets quiet. Really, really beautiful. Let's play that same chord progression again, because I love it. Is so wonderful, it's so beautiful, and I absolutely love it. Now for fun, let's try out that other simple melody I had on the marimba, which actually works pretty good on both instruments. It might work a little better on the marimba, or maybe it works a little bit better on the vibes. Let me know what you think, if I play the right notes. Again, just like the marimba, you can use mallets of different hardnesses on the vibraphone. I don't think I needed to use the hardest ones there. That made it sound a bit bright and frail, but you can use mallets of different hardnesses. There's another similarity this has with the marimba. Different mallet hardnesses do have different effects. These are my medium ones. If I use those, you'll hear a difference. A slight one, but where you really hear a difference, again, is using soft mallets in the treble. You don't really hear much. You can get it to come out by hitting it really hard, but that still doesn't come out as nicely as if you use a harder mallet up in the treble. You don't have to hit it as hard, and it comes out way nicer anyways. I love the vibraphone. It's such a fun instrument to play. It's so beautiful, and I absolutely love using it in music. It's absolutely wonderful. I just can't get over how much I love these things. They're so cool. It's one of the coolest musical instruments that I know of. Here's another difference between the vibraphone and the marimba. You'll probably notice the size of the bars. They're absolutely huge on the marimba. For example, if I take two of these mallets and I play, let's see how wide of an interval I can play on here. I can definitely do a ninth. That's a ninth here on the marimba. I'm in the vibraphone. If I take this same stretch and I walk all the way over to the marimba at the bass end, you will see that that same interval is no longer a ninth, it is instead a fifth. So you can see that the bars over here on the marimba are absolutely gigantic. On the M500, they are the biggest bars of any marimba, and that's why some people don't like them, because there is a little bit of a learning curve to having the bars be really spaced out down here and a little bit narrower down here. But you do get used to it, and over time, if you just practice on it, it becomes a bit easier. Let's do some back-to-back comparisons now of the vibraphone and the marimba. Let's just play like an A major chord here on the marimba, and then do the same voicing of it on the vibraphone. And just to give you guys a really nice back-to-back comparison of how these are different, let's do it. Same mallets, same everything. Let's come over here. Move this one because it's in the way. Move that one because it's in the way. Completely different sound. It's absolutely wonderful. Totally different sound, totally different effect, and I think you'd want to use the vibraphone and the marimba for totally different things in music. I think that that's about everything that I wanted to demo on the vibraphone and the marimba. So I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something today, and I just hope that you enjoyed the video and that you learned that the vibraphone and the marimba are two amazing instruments. Sometimes when I'm in public and I'm talking to people and I'm like, oh, hey, I have a marimba, they're like, what's a marimba? And I'm kind of surprised about that, because the marimba is so cool, deserves to be known and recognized by more people. I kind of thought it was a pretty famous instrument, but some people that I talked to don't seem to know what it was. So hopefully if you didn't know what a marimba was before, or you didn't know what the differences between a marimba and a vibraphone were, hopefully now you do. One more tip before I go is that the marimba has those wooden bars. They're made of Honduran rosewood, which is an endangered tree, and I believe that the wood can only be harvested from, at least these days, from a rosewood tree that has naturally fallen. Only then can you harvest the wood. So it's very difficult to get this wood, but regardless of whether it's a rosewood marimba or a Padauk marimba, one tip is to never actually touch the bars with your hands. And if you do on accident, it's not going to ruin it, but avoid touching the bars with your hands at all times, because everybody's hands have oils on them, and those oils aren't good for the marimba. One accidental brush and touch here and there won't hurt it, but if you're constantly touching the bars with your hands, the oils in your hands can damage the finish and actually can affect the sound. The vibraphone, I believe, is completely impervious to that. They are metal, but as a general rule, I try to avoid touching the bars on here with my hands anyway, just to be safe. So that was just a final tip for you guys. If you have a marimba, if you're thinking about getting a marimba, or if your friend at his place or her place has a marimba, avoid touching the bars with your hands. I see a lot of people doing it, and I've been told by the folks at Muster when I bought this that you're not supposed to do that. So I'm going to tell you guys as well. Don't touch the bars on the marimba. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below. If you have any cool video ideas, also let me know. And if you do, thank you very much. I will see you in the next video. And if you're new here, go ahead and think about subscribing. If you do that, thank you very much. Bye-bye.